Welcome one and all to Umami Manga. I'm Petter and this is James.
Hello.
And today we are talking about The God's Lie. This manga is written by Kaori Ozaki. As far as I'm aware, she started her career by making shoujo manga in the 90s with a series called Immortal Rain. At least that seems to be her most successful shoujo series.
Wow, what a awesome title. Immortal Rain.
Yeah, or at least that's the English title. I don't know. I can't remember what the Japanese title was,
Uh,
but yeah, it is an interesting
now,
title. And
now, are we talking about rain as in raindrops or rain as in like a kingdom? The king's reign.
right, I was thinking about that too. It is written as rain, as in raindrops.
Okay.
But
Less
it,
epic, but still pretty
when you just say it out loud though, it kind of sounds like the other rain.
immortal
Uh,
rain.
Either way, so yeah, she kind of had a career as a successful shoujo mangaka for a while until I believe she hasn't dropped that completely, but in 2013 she published The God's Lie, which was her first manga for the seinen demographic, and since then she has also done one other seinen manga called The Golden Sheep, which I've also read and I love that one a lot as well. But anyway, if my memory serves me right, you and I, James, picked up this manga, The God's Lie, independently of each other around the same time last year, which I think is pretty funny, like a pretty funny coincidence. And since, I don't know if I've heard about it from too many other kind of directions, but it is like a short and sweet manga that I thought it was a perfect thing to cover as a one shot on the podcast like this.
Yeah, I had not really heard about it before I just saw it at the bookstore. I don't remember if you had mentioned the title just offhand as something that you were interested in, and that's what got me when I was at the bookstore. It's like, hey, did Petter mention this? I can't remember for sure,
Mm.
but we weren't even talking about, oh, let's read this. I think that was just something
No.
you had said offhandedly, or
Uh-huh.
if that actually did happen or not.
Right,
Um,
right.
Either way, yeah, I just saw it and the art and the title really intrigued me, so I gave it a shot. I think what's really interesting just about the publication of this is that it was first published in 2013.
Hmm.
I don't know when this appeared on bookshelves here, but I don't know. It almost seemed like a new release. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, so the back, like the last page of the book, I'm just looking right now. It says something
Mhm.
about 2016, so maybe that was when it
So
released,
maybe it's been
like
around for a
published
while.
in English, or the specific edition at the very least.
Mm, gotcha. Well, it's yeah, I haven't heard many people talking about it,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I think it's worth people giving a shot. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's and also before we get into the actual discussions here, obviously spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about the entire volume here.
Yeah.
It's not a long one, so if you haven't read the whole thing, just finish it and come back later. We're going to be talking about everything about this manga, so yeah, you have been warned. And we're going to start by talking about Rio Suzumura, the female lead of this story. A girl who's been forced to really grow up faster than most other kids because of this, well, all the shit that she's had to go through. Really,
Yeah.
truly, some really traumatizing stuff.
Mhm.
Um, on this reread that I did today, I thought it became or it I really I felt so much for her in these early parts of the story before everything becomes clear to the reader, at least the first time reader. But obviously, since it was my reread, I really felt for her when she was lying about her family situation and really how she was in denial about her dad. Uh,
Mhm.
it was really quite heartbreaking.
Yeah. The denial about her dad is really tough because I think a lot of us don't want to think the worst of our family members. Don't
Mm.
want to think, and maybe there's a bit of selfishness there. Like we don't want to be looked down upon. We don't want to be pitied. I mean, she even mentioned that if something like this were to happen, it'd be a grand, or if this were to get out, it'd be a grand scandal, which it was.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't blame her for feeling that. It's kind of a mixture of not wanting to put shame on your family, on yourself, but also having this connection to a family member. Now, not everybody is like that. Some people really can cut off from their family for either good reasons or bad reasons.
Mm.
But I think a fair amount of people, no matter who their parents or family members are, it's hard for them to completely disconnect.
Yeah.
And in Rio's case, it was really important for her to, at some point, let go and accept the fact that her father's a scumbag
Hmm.
and that he doesn't love them. So it's hard for a 12-year-old to learn that lesson, but I think it was a really well done or well written way of portraying that.
Yeah, it really, really was. And I don't know, yeah, just seeing like everything she had to deal with, like she lost her dad and her grandfather on the same day essentially, uh,
Mm.
and she had to bury her grandfather all by herself, and surely she must have had her doubts about her father's her father's, yeah, his honesty, kind of even from pretty early on. Or at least it must have been building slightly from pretty early on after he left, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as you've been saying, yeah, it definitely can be hard to kind of accept all of that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I thought it was heartwarming to see how she was really quite like cheering up little by little the more time she spent with Natsuru, in the especially like the first half or so of this series.
Mm-hmm.
Like the longer they lived together, she seemed to be in a better mood. And well, and then obviously there are the romantic feelings, of course, that I think were quite obvious from quite early on.
Yeah.
And I think they did start with Rio. And I think when one is in love, it's easier to feel a little bit better. And maybe she needed that. Or I think that was good for her in that tough time of her life.
Yeah. I agree, and it was heartwarming to see some of those, uh, I guess, hints that she was falling for Natsuru, or really thinking about him. I really like when she's at the bookstore and she grabs the Easy Recipes He'll Love book. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's cute.
That's very cute. Mm.
And yeah, it was sweet seeing their kind of young love blossom.
Yeah.
Even though, hear me out,
Uh-huh.
maybe they're a little young. Like,
Yeah.
Natsuru's 11 and she's 12. I mean, look, it's a very sweet story and it's fiction and I get it. And look, maybe there are, I mean, nowadays it does seem like teenagers or preteens act more and more like adults, it seems. But I don't know. The scene where they're in the little inn and um in the closet and they
Mm.
kiss. It's a strong scene and a kind of a good build up, but also it's like, wait a minute. How do they even know? How do they even know that? Like they're 11, or well, they're so young. They're still in elementary school.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with you generally that is a bit strange, and it's
I don't
it's
know. I
easy to
mean,
forget about their young ages when
right,
you're in
right.
when you're kind of invested in the story. You don't necessarily think of them as being as young as they actually are, and maybe that is because they don't quite realistically feel that young,
You don't
um,
think so? Cause
in certain ways.
in
Like,
certain
well,
way, fair, fair.
in these ways that you've been talking about, especially like the romantic side of it.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Like, but still, as I said at the beginning about Rio, at the very least, I think she has been forced to mature faster than kids her age because of the trauma that she's been put through, kind of. So I think it sort of makes sense for her to be a bit more mature than other kids her age.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, for someone who's kind of been deprived of much love throughout her life,
Mhm.
maybe it makes
Right.
sense for her to be reaching out in that way.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's true too.
yeah. That's very, Very interesting. But I guess really touching real quick on acting their age or whatever. I
Mm,
think for the most part they do act like, you know, 12, 11-year olds.
yeah.
Obviously Rio is acting much more mature and has a lot of responsibility on her shoulders. Even has a budget and everything like that. But I mean, I think still feels realistic for their age, and especially Natsuda, I feel like is fairly accurate.
Yeah.
But I like I said, I agree. It does seem like the romance part may be a little more adultish, but still, you know, it's a story, and I think it's nice that it's there,
Yeah.
and I think it adds. I think it adds. It's not doesn't really take away from it, but
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think about their age when it was all said and done.
And I think that's fair, and I think I did a little bit as well. But speaking about their age and whatnot in relation to Rio here, when they were out in the rain during the summer festival, Rio pointed out that it's more socially acceptable, basically, for a kid to do certain things or certain weird things, kind of, such as
Mm-hmm.
playing in the rain and getting soaked. And it makes it kind of sad when you consider that she has really been, as I've been saying, forced to grow up faster than other kids, but she's still, or at least part of her is still trying to hold on to that, well, to her childhood, despite of all of that. And I think that's sad in a way, but also really beautiful.
I think there's a few layers that could be taken from that because obviously there is something wrong. Like
Yeah.
there is something wrong with her. The guilt is eating at her. She has a lot on her mind, lying to herself in many ways, but she's using this excuse just to be out in the rain. She's saying, "Oh well, I'm a kid, so it's okay. When I'm adult, I can't do this."
Hmm.
Uh, but when in reality, there is things eating at her. She's not really doing this. I mean, maybe there is that. Yeah, I'm doing this because I want to be out in the rain. I'm just a kid, but there is something eating at her, and I don't know. I think there's kind of a few ways to look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I don't think most kids have that or have those thoughts, you know? Most
Yeah,
kids,
yeah,
if you want to go, if they want to go out and play in the rain, they'll go out and play in the rain, and
right,
there's much more to it than that.
right.
But here we have Rio, who's really just contemplating these things about when she grows older. This is not gonna be okay any longer. That's not, I guess, quote unquote, normal. But yeah, I believe it has a lot to do with her troubled life.
Mm-hmm. It was, kind of speaking of those troubles. I think we briefly mentioned it, but she buried her own grandfather in the
Yeah.
ground.
Mm-hmm.
That is, yeah, that was quite shocking.
Very.
Leading up to that reveal, there was obviously something up with the shack and that garden. It was nicely hinted at, with the ghost
Yeah.
stuff and things like that. So
Mm.
it wasn't truly obvious what it could be, and it wasn't until we start digging in, or it wasn't until we started like seeing or noticing the smell that I think the
Yeah.
thoughts of there's something going on there.
Precisely. Especially when the smell is described as rotten. I'm like,
Right, right,
that's
right.
not good at all.
And as we got closer to the big reveal, I started to wonder if it was if it was the mom actually, like their
Ah.
mother who
Mm.
had ended up dying at some point. Turns out it was the grandfather. So the mom just, I guess, either was never there or ended up uh, just leaving at some point
Right.
or what not. But yeah, I mean, talk about a traumatizing experience. Like you said, losing the two people who are basically your adult figures just in
Yeah.
one night, like it or one day. It's crazy.
It really is. And then obviously came the moment when she actually did see her dad again for the first time in like over 3 months.
Ah,
Um, and
that was not
it was
nice.
so like all she could say in the moment was, "Where's the crab? How was Alaska?" Even though like she's aware, she knows at that point those are 100% irrelevant questions.
Yeah.
But it's like all like comes to her, and her dad just ignores her.
Bro got issues.
He does. Oh, that is so dreadful. I feel bad in my whole body just thinking of, like, just recalling that scene right now. It's so
Yeah.
horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Yeah, it's a horrible scene.
So it's not strange that she loses basically all of her motivation to do anything after that.
No, not at all.
Like,
Yeah, that's
totally understand that.
yeah. I think it goes to or it ties into one of the themes of the story that I think I'll probably dive into more when we talk about Natsuru, but
Hmm?
the gods lie, and the lies that are told to us or that we decide to believe, but when the truth comes down, that can be a little rough.
Absolutely,
Uh,
precisely.
especially in this case. I mean, that's a truth she just didn't want to believe, and
Yeah,
hard to accept.
precisely. Yeah, she had been struggling with it for months, probably.
Oh, your father never loved you. What? Like that's
Yeah,
it's hard to accept that.
absolutely. But we learn a little bit after that that her name means a reason to live. And so even at her lowest point there, which I'd say is right after her meeting with her dad there, even then she, well, or I believe she always had that reason to live.
Hmm.
In Natsuru and in Yuta. I think it's thanks to them that she was able to go on, kind of.
Would you argue that Natsuru kind of became her reason to live?
Yes, or at least part. I think Yuta still remains
You're
part of it
right.
as well. Yeah, but
It's
Natsuru
family,
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
because
yeah,
she even
exactly.
says that he became part of her family.
Right. So they are her only family at that
Hmm.
point. At the end, by the end of the story. So yeah, I think it's both of them, and yeah, and both of them are huge factors, kind of.
Yes, I mean you could argue that what a theme from her story is family is a reason to live for,
Yeah.
um, despite her terrible family circumstance.
Right. Yeah. Actually, yeah, that is kind of funny. But I mean, yeah, the family that she has left
She
and the
did find
family that
family.
she finds, yeah,
Yeah,
they are worth living for.
agree.
That's beautiful. And I love how in the end it's Ria who breaks the silence by calling Natsuru. They'll have their happy ending.
I guess.
I'm sure they will.
Oh yeah, sure. I don't mind how the story ends. I think it ends somewhat satisfyingly, but also I would have really liked some sort of epilogue. Not like and then they're married. Like I mean, I think a lot of people would like that, but
Yeah.
that seems like we're kind of fast forwarding the story a little bit too much. It would have been really, really satisfying if they were to meet again face to face, older, something like that. I kind of thought that would have been really nice to see. Maybe too cliche, but how is that really any different than a bit of a phone call? I don't know. And it's not like I need to see Natsude as a soccer star yet. Yeah, I just think in a longer epilogue, maybe farther in the future would have been nice. But
That's fair. That's fair. I think maybe I felt a little similarly the first time I read this last year. Because I remember that there was something about the ending the last time I read it, or the first time I read it, that I wasn't perfectly satisfied with. However, on the reread today, I absolutely loved the way this ended. It's open enough to make it, well, kind of to leave you wanting more in a way that I kind of enjoy the tease of, while at the same time I think it's still clear enough that, well, the last speech bubble literally says we'll see each other again, and I think there's a massive amount of hope in there.
we'll see each other again. Just imagine it.
Yeah, and personally I'm fine with that.
Yes, there is a massive amount of hope. Yeah,
Hmm.
there is a massive amount of hope, And I do think there is, something poetic about leaving it at that point. Although I don't know, I guess my thing is how with this story, I don't know how well it fits really, because I guess one could argue that no matter the distance, they're still family, and that even though they're not seeing each other, they still are.
Hmm.
But I still feel like meeting up again would have been, even briefly, would have been a good, satisfying way to end it. But again, maybe that was too cliche. I'm not the author, clearly. But yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's a fair opinion to have. Next, let's talk about Natsuru Nanao. A boy from Tokyo. Girls don't tend to talk to Natsuru much in school because of an unfortunate uh, moment of slight distress, I suppose, that he had as a kid or earlier in the semester or whenever it was. He's a bit of an awkward kid.
I don't know about girls not talking to him much. I think he could have had plenty of chances, but he's only 11.
Exactly. He's only 11.
He's only 11. Like, for some reason these girls are already like, I don't know when it's typical for girls or guys to start really thinking about the opposite sex or whatnot, but for some reason these girls in his school were really like Himigawa, really going after him, and I think that's the whole reason why he didn't end up talking to any girls, is because he messed up with her.
Yeah, and I believe she also kind of had like she was, I guess, a quote unquote popular girl who probably had enough influence to make it so that the other girls would also kind of ignore him or not want to associate with him.
That's exactly it.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So I mean that's the whole reason really for things
Hmm.
being the way they are with Natsuri and girls.
Right, right. Because
uh,
otherwise I think he'd be a very popular kid. I
Fair.
mean, he's one of the fastest. I mean, automatically he's up the food chain in elementary school.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, he loves soccer, and he's a fast runner. But they got a new soccer coach because the previous one got cancer.
First off, let me just say about the soccer coach guy. I mean, look, I get like being serious about the sport, but they're young. Like, I don't know. I personally don't like it when adults take things too seriously with the kids. I
Yeah.
mean, granted, I can get pretty when it's a game, I can get pretty invested into it, but I'm not gonna start like yelling at the kids. Like the
Hmm.
only thing I'm just gonna be serious about it. But I'm not gonna like if I was a coach, I wouldn't yell at the kids or tell the kids, oh, you're not very good, or you're
Mm.
at bored in March, so that's a disadvantage. Like, what kind of garbage is that?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, seriously. And yeah, it becomes so apparent too when like we know that soccer is Natsuru's passion. Like it's his
Mm-hmm.
main hobby. Like he loves soccer. But this new coach just drained all of that fun out of it for him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hate when people have that effect on people's interest like that.
Right. Right. So it's interesting to compare Natsuru's own struggles with what Ryo's going with. I mean, they don't seem comparable, really. But, all our struggles are different.
Mm,
And for Natsuru, this is something that was, really eating at him. Something that he loved was suddenly becoming not enjoyable.
yeah.
Uh, and yeah, that's certainly not great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it sucks. And well, maybe a little bit about his family. He calls his mom by her name, Ritsuko, which I think is
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, I know it happens. It's not strange, perhaps, but I always kind of react a little bit extra when I notice a kid calling or referring to their parents by their name.
Yeah, well, usually it's like the mom is their stepmom or adopted mother
Huh.
or something like that. But no, this is his real mom,
Yeah.
who by the way, he needs her boobs. Like, what the freak?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Is that normal?
I I don't think so.
That's a little weird.
I definitely also thought that was kind of weird.
I guess families have their quirks. Clearly, but that was a little. That's a little much. It's like, Mom, please control your son.
Yeah, he needs to stop doing that before he's too old.
Yeah.
Because then it's gonna get really weird.
Yeah.
But but yeah, she's a struggling light novel writer, and his father has passed away.
Yeah.
It was revealed that his dad was the one who gave him his name, Natsuru, because when he was born, he was very small and sick, and the doctors said that if he survived until summer, he would be fine, and that's because and that was the reason for his name, which means like summer and stay or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Natsuru also obviously starts to develop romantic feelings for Rio, and even though I believe, yeah, as I said before, Rio had definitely, I believe, had feelings first. Natsuru started developing them as well, and it was on the day of the festival that he fully, I think, realized or recognized those feelings that he had fallen in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
And even after he had, I guess, come to terms with that or with those feelings, kind of what I was talking about before about how he didn't know how to deal with that princess girl in his class, like when she like wanted to give him chocolates, like he ran away.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, he ran away also from Rio when her secrets were revealed to him, and he out of distress, I believe he ran away because he didn't know how to handle the situation, just the way he is, I suppose.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't blame him for doing that. I think that's not a unreasonable reaction.
Yeah, especially for a kid.
Mm-hmm. Curious to get your thoughts on how he basically kind of defends Neo at school
Oh yeah.
with the slapping of Himegawa, and then even after that, I guess he got into a few fights.
Right. Yeah. I that's so the thing is, I don't think Himegawa necessarily like when she said the things that she said in that scene to Rio,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she was trying to be mean.
Oh, really?
Or I don't know.
I mean, I think it was classic. Oh, I'm gonna pretend to be nice, but I'm also gonna like softly poke, and because clearly she was jealous that she was spending time with Natsuru, who wouldn't even give her the time of day. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah, actually that's a good point. Yeah, it may actually just be that, but I also kind of felt like maybe I mean because they are all just kind of kids after all. And I sort of when I read it, I kind of got the feeling that it may not come from a bad place except for her to feel a bit superior in the situation. I think that's something that she may have kind of gotten off on in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, it may not have been mean spirited. However, I kind of forgot about the time that she saw them on the festival, where she definitely seemed to get very upset about that. So, with that in mind, yeah, maybe it was kind of to be mean on purpose after all.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? Like, she definitely veils her comments as being someone being sincere, but just kind of the experience in previous manga works, it just seems like that was what she was trying to get at.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, and I think you're right.
but kids are brutally honest,
That's true
whether
too.
they mean to be or not.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe there's something to be said there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But at the same time, I don't know if I agree with Natsuru slapping or hitting people.
Right.
I mean, obviously what he did was wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
I think they all acknowledge that. But the fact that he continues to do it, and his mom doesn't Mom apologizes, but doesn't really scold him or say much about it. I don't know. I think I'm not expecting him to be, smacked in return. Of course not.
Mm.
But I am. I don't think that should be encouraged. Like
Yeah,
let's try to talk things out. let's
absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you about that. At the same time, he's a kid, and I guess
Yeah.
it's yeah, kids are kids, but at the same time, though, yeah, like it definitely should never be encouraged violence. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's like I respect his sense of justice, kind of,
Yes.
and
Yes.
his dedication to Rio and all of that is respectable. But yeah, like violence is never the answer. It's just I don't know.
Hey, Natsuru, have I got a book for you?
Yeah.
Have I got a great epic for you, my friend? You like Vikings?
Exactly.
Anyway, um,
yeah, I think he would need to read Vinland Saga. Maybe when he gets a bit older.
but he's still a kid, and the time skip, not a whole lot of time has happened. I mean, he's just barely getting into middle school. So it wasn't a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
So I guess I could see why he'd still behave that immaturely.
Right, precisely.
But like you said, I really do appreciate his sense of justice, and I mean, he does really love Rio. So
Yeah.
it's obvious to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, when they've run away and they're at like the beach area, and they're talking about the dreams. Rio's like, "Oh, I wanted to be a bride" or something like that. He's like, "Whose bride?"
Yeah, that's the first thing he says.
I love that.
Yeah, it's very very cute. Yeah. Yeah, and I actually I liked how even though he was the one who ran away, when her secrets came out, uh, he was also the one to come back to them and to suggest that they run away together. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was also very sweet, and also kind of fitting for his characters to suggest that they run away, since before that point we had seen him run away from situations 2 times already. Obviously,
Good point.
this would be on a much grander scale than those 2 times, but still, I thought
Yeah.
it was fitting still.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Like his way of coping with
Mm.
difficult situations is just to run away.
Right. Mm-hmm.
but he's not like a chicken or anything like that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Escapism somehow.
Yeah, escapism. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Did we mention that he didn't go to the soccer camp
No, we haven't talked about that now.
before them running away? That was his big moment, kind of because his passion for soccer is just gone, and his favorite soccer teacher wouldn't be there,
Mm-hmm.
and various other things. He decided not to go.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want to say about that, but that was
Oh yeah.
just an interesting point in his escapism.
Definitely.
I guess this is a good chance to talk about Okada real quick.
Yes.
So Okada is the coach that he had beforehand.
Mm.
Just really a fun guy who just wants to, make sure the kids have fun.
Yeah, just have fun.
Right, and that probably is what instilled the passion for soccer in Yusuke. Not Yusuke, sorry, Natsuru. I don't know where Yusuke came from.
Mm.
But yeah, I was worried that this character would die, but they did not.
Maybe he does like a day after the story ended or something. I don't know.
Maybe he could have. That's why we need an epilogue. um, but yeah, so it's interesting to see these parental figures kind of fail in one way or another for these young children, and not necessarily fail because of their own mistakes, obviously. For example, Natsuru's actual father wasn't there. It was there for him as he was growing up, but that was no fault of his own. It was just this sickness he had.
Yeah.
And I think in some way, his feelings about that somewhat projected towards Okada and his fight with cancer, and losing someone who is so important to him, I think was really unsettling for
Yeah.
him.
Right. Yeah. I don't think I really thought about it that deeply in that, like, about this character, but yeah, I agree. It probably reminded him of those kind of sorrows, I guess, in a way, or could have.
Right. I mean, he does mention that he didn't actually know his father and that sort of thing.
Right.
But at the same time, I think he you do kind of look for that fatherly figure in some aspect.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Okada didn't have a whole lot, or not really much of a role or any screen time in the story, but I still think it was something in the back of his mind the entire way, as he tries to cope with, you know, do I really love soccer?
Hmm.
What's going on with things around my life and whatnot.
For sure.
And I actually think that ties into the title of the book, if you don't mind me
Yes.
moving on to that.
No, please do.
The Gods Lie. Now, this is a talking point that wasn't brought up until the very end of the book, where his mom mentions it, that the gods lie. And basically, to me, it seems to be implying that these adult-like figures who have all these responsibilities and seem perfect and love us unconditionally, like some people would attribute to a god, are godlike people to these children, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the gods lie. Sometimes adults lie in certain ways to not hurt us, not hurt the children.
Yeah, right. And they do so because they love us.
Yeah. It's a very interesting way of looking at it, because that also goes to Leo's father and the lies he told.
Yeah.
Were they out of love?
That's the question.
That's the thing. Like, I guess one could argue that at some layer of the selfishness and just giving up, there could be a bit of love there, in that he didn't want to tell them the truth that I don't love you or I don't care for you,
Mm.
in that way. So
Yeah.
it's somewhat of a stretch, but I think that maybe that's what makes it so poetic and profound, is that uh, these lies kind of keep us from being hurt further or something like that. But in the end, I mean, obviously Rio was hurt deeply, so didn't really
Right.
matter.
I don't think he spared her of any pain whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Like actually it's interesting. I think the parental figure thing, like having that kind of, as you mentioned, being like the god in the title of the story, and how it's, or at least traditionally, like a parental figure whose lies can be compared to the god's lies. I think that makes sense, and that might actually be exactly the way it should be interpreted. But the way I read it here was just kind of in general, every character, regardless of what role they have in relation to other people in their lives, uh, could be compared to the reason why the gods lie, which is because they will for love. Because at least the way I saw it, kind of, I think every character in the story, even the children, they lie because of love.
Because it's the best they can do.
Because it's the best they can do, and they do so because of love in one way or another. And maybe, in my opinion, Rio's dad is the exception. But I'm sure there, people can have good arguments probably for as to like why, or to justify his lies as love as well. But I don't know, man.
Well, and I think another factor to this is that the kids want to be lied to in this circumstances. Like, we want the gods to lie to us,
Right.
because it gives us hope. It gives us something to keep living for, keep on living.
Mm.
And I think in Dio's case, she did not want to give up on that lie. She knew it was a lie, I think.
Yeah,
Like
right.
deep
Deep
down,
down. Hmm.
she knew it had to be a lie, but she kept on believing. She wanted to believe those lies were true, and I think there is something profound in that. But at the same time, it's like we also have to come to reality,
Yeah.
that these lies are just not the truth, and we have to accept that. So it's interesting give and take kind of situation.
Yeah. No, man, and I also think it's a good lesson in a way.
Hmm.
It kind of teaches the importance of, I guess, of seeing the truth in places where one might not necessarily want to.
Mm. Mm.
Because the only way we can process our grief is by recognizing it, you know.
Mm. That's a good point. So another instance of the gods lying is Okada. This is where it kind of ties together for me,
Ah, yeah.
in that he says to Natsuru that, "Oh, I'll be back and we can play soccer again and it'll be great."
Mm-hmm.
But I think it turns out that's a lie.
I believe so, yeah.
And actually, so you see a panel when they're talking about that concept, the gods lie, and it gives a few examples of those who, those gods who have lied. It shows Okada, and I was like, wait a minute, he doesn't die, does he? No, not at least not in these pages. He doesn't die. Maybe a year or so afterwards, who knows? But
Right.
at that moment, that lie that Okada told, I think, was something that Natsuru desperately wanted to believe and give him the hope, the reassurance to keep going and keep playing soccer and keep, I guess, being happy in that sense.
Yeah.
And then one final one is his actual father. We already mentioned him a little bit, but him saying that if you're a good boy and listen to your mother, the gods will see, and I'll get better. I mean,
Yeah.
oh gosh, like if I was in the situation as the father, I don't like the idea of lying, lying,
Mm.
but I also feel like I would maybe say something very similar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Especially if it would help my wife
Yeah.
at all. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Santa Claus. We say, "Oh, be a good boy, and Santa will bring presents."
Yeah, it's essentially that, yeah.
But it's sad, and I wish it wasn't the case that he died. But like his mother said, it was he did it because he loves him very much, and
Mm.
sometimes those little white lies are just there to make us feel loved, to give us hope and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not advocating for lying. We all just lie to each other and, and whatnot. But life's complicated, I mean,
Yeah.
the recent Spy Family volume is a good example of that. Just kidding. But yeah, life's complicated, and I think it's foolish to look at it at black and white, and just say lying altogether is bad. Now, telling the truth can really help out a lot, so don't take that for granted. But I think
Yeah.
in the instances that were shown here, not all of them, but most of them, I think lying saved them a lot of grief. My opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it's absolutely. It's a strong message in the story, really.
Yeah, reading the first three, I mean, I loved it my first time as well, but reading the second time, I really get this strong, or even stronger, family importance of family and
Mm.
a branch of familial love, through a concept that I didn't really think too much about. These little white lies and
Right.
reasons for living and hope and whatnot. So
Yeah.
yeah, I find it to be quite profound.
It really is. It absolutely is. And I agree. I also appreciated those things a lot more on my reread. So yeah, any listener who's only read this once, do read it again. I'm sure you'd
Yeah,
find some new things to appreciate.
yeah.
But is that all on Natsuru?
I think so.
Then let's talk a little bit about Yuta, Rio's little brother. It's the only other character that I wanted to dedicate a little segment to here, and it's nowhere near as much as the other two characters, of course. But um, I love how child accurate this character is. Like especially like a little child, like he really is.
Yeah.
Like doing all these weird things that I totally might have done myself when I was a little kid. You know, it's so fun. I really think that the mangaka did an amazing job portraying that.
You know, I thought this on both. Like when I first started the story on both my read throughs, forgive me. I thought well, and not that this is a bad thing, but I thought, oh, does he have autism? Maybe, but by the end, I was like, well, maybe he is just pretty accurate for a little kid like that.
I think so.
But again, like having autism is not a bad thing, of course.
No, for
It's
sure.
just I just wasn't sure if that was like, oh,
Mm.
is that supposed to be a thing?
I mean, maybe he has autism, but like I believe, well, depending on the severity of the autism, of course, I believe it does kind of give some of these traits that Yuta kind of displays. But
Mm,
I also think I don't think they are abnormal in any sense for little kids that age as well.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. But he named the cat Tofu.
That's cute.
That was very cute. And yeah, the cat in general was just very cute. It had
Yeah.
to amputate the back foot by the end, but it could still run, and the book makes a point about there being nothing sad about that.
Yeah, what do you think the comparison there was? Because it shows Dio's dream of Natsuru playing on a soccer team.
Mm. Yeah, the way I kind of viewed it was, I guess, the importance of an optimistic mindset, like a positive outlook on life, because well, not only did I read that part kind of in that way, but there was also the riddle that Natsuru gave, which was they shine brighter in the dark, but even when you can't see them, they're still there. What are they? The answer, of course, is supposed to be the stars, but Yuta answered Rio and Natnat, or well, Rio and Natsuru. I believe that shows how much he relies on them during the dark times, kind of,
Mm.
and that they're strong even when things are rough, and that they are, at least from Yuta's point of view, they can kind of bring this positivity, perhaps similarly as to the how the book points out that there's nothing sad about the cat only having three legs.
I like that. Here's something that I thought of was
Hmm?
Tofu having the limp leg, but still like living with it. Maybe can be a comparison to Dio and Yuta having the broken family, but still living with it.
Yeah.
But eventually they let go of that. Well, I mean, forcibly Tofu has to let go of the leg, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like they live on
Yeah.
with it, and there's nothing wrong with having that,
Hmm.
that separation, or having a broken family, or you know
Hmm.
the shame of being different in that sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that could be the comparison to be made there. I'm not exactly sure why it leads into Leo's dream like that. I guess again it goes to maybe how she views him as family and love and whatnot.
Right.
Um,
Precisely. It could be that, or it could be, I guess, the well, yeah, either the family tie or the optimistic outlook point,
mm,
kind of.
mm,
I think both of these kind of work for this, but either way, it's nice.
yeah,
But that's all I had on Yuta and Tofu.
yeah. I think Tofu was a more important character. I'm just kidding. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, it was the reason why they really started to get together. They being Dio and Natsuru. So
that's
there you
true.
go.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Cool. Then how? Yeah, as you probably know, I gotta ask you. How are you rating this story on a scale from 1 to 10?
I probably give it an 8, which is great.
It is. It is absolutely.
And I think this is a story I would like to see animated. I think
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see a director's take on the storyboard and the growth of these characters, and then obviously the voice acting. Seeing how that would go. I think there's
Yeah.
a lot to be gained here from an animated movie of some kind.
Right.
They may have to add like a couple things, epilogue, but I think that I think that it could totally work as a movie.
Yeah, like maybe a slightly shorter than average movie. If you could, I wouldn't want them to just fill it out with filler for the sake of making
No,
it like a
no,
feature length film. But I
yeah.
mean, however long it would turn out. But yeah, I also actually had the thought while reading today that yeah, it would be awesome to see this animated. And I will say for my score of this, when I read it the first time last year, I scored it a 7 out of 10.
Mm.
But upon rereading it today, I've bumped it up to an 8.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, definitely did grow on me. And at some point in the future, not saying it has to be soon, it might be like years in the future, but at some point in the future, I would like to cover the Golden Sheep on a podcast episode as well, kind of like we did with this one. Obviously, not going to go into spoilers or anything, but that one has some similar themes as this story, and it has I'd say a different kind of heaviness compared to The God's Lie, which I think I think will make for some interesting discussions. But yeah, that's I guess enough on that one. Although I will say one final thing. I at least comparing my first read of each of those series by Kaori Ozaki, I did like The Golden Sheep a bit more. And maybe I still do.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah. I had a blast rereading The God's Lie today, though, and talking about it with you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a story that I think is a good one to dive deeply in and think about those themes
Yeah.
and whatnot. I mean, we cover all kinds of stories on the podcast, from ones that are silly to ones that are a little deeper into the philosophical mindset of things.
Mm.
And I really enjoy when we get to talk deeply about a story like this.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. This one's really made for having discussions about, and I really appreciate kind of the things that came up today.
By the way, I don't know if we mentioned, but the art is very good.
Oh yeah, yes.
I mean,
it deserves some praise.
To be fair, like it's hard to find a manga out there that doesn't have great art in some aspect. I guess you could find more generic ones, but I think this one stands out. Just the character designs are good, the settings are very nicely done, and yeah, I like it.
Me too. Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful art, beautiful story. It's beautiful all around. And, well, I suppose that's all for this week, though.
Yeah.
So, listeners, if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by rating our show on the podcast platforms and subscribing to our channel, Umami Manga, on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time when we'll talk about something else. Bye-bye!
See you later!
But I mean, I didn't dislike it. It wasn't like Ponyo.
Oh yeah, I don't even me. I don't know if I even want to rewatch it. I mean, maybe I'll do it just for the sake of it, but I don't know. The only thing it has going for it is the animation. That's it.
Yeah, honestly.
The song is, oh my gosh. I remember I was living in Japan. Did I tell you this? I was living in Japan when it came out. And every mall you went to, I mean, this is marketing for you. Every mall you went to, Ponyo, la 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 la.
Oh no.
No.
Oh my gosh. What?
Make it stop.